You are now watching the Methods Podcast.
Are we live?
We are.
Wow, welcome to Methods Podcast. I'm Matt King. This is Tori King. I do Methods weightlifting. She does Pilates, Pilato Kokomo.
And we're here to talk about methods.
We're here to talk about methods. That's right. So what's Pilato Kokomo?
Pilato. This is our mural. Vaporwave inspired.
Who did it?
I did it.
It's true.
My background is exercise science and Olympic weightlifting. I started Pilates when I was a personal trainer at the Healthplex in Indianapolis. They said, hey, we need a new Pilates instructor and we'll pay for their certification. And so I did that. And then I liked it a lot. And then we decided we wanted to buy a house. And then we saw that Kokomo was cheaper. And we moved here. And there was no Pilates. So we made Pilates. And now we're here. Pilato. Pilato. The name for Pilato is like Play-Doh.
Philosophy inspired.
Philosophy inspired.
That's true.
Tell us about methods.
Nice and simple. Well, I went to Western High School and Marian University. I studied exercise science. I couldn't help myself. And when I was younger, I stopped doing football to do Olympic weightlifting full time. Originally, my parents wanted me to get good at football so that I could get an athletic scholarship to go to college. And so they were very upset when I first decided to do Olympic weightlifting full time. But then later on, they found out that there was also many scholarship opportunities for Olympic weightlifting. So I ended up getting a full ride scholarship to Marian University for Olympic weightlifting.
Where we met.
We met on the Olympic weightlifting team. I had a long-term dream of starting an Olympic weightlifting gym. I didn't actually plan to do it soon. One thing led to another. We started the Pilates studio, and now we started Methods weightlifting. Olympic weightlifting is the type of lifting that's in the Olympics. It's the only one. It consists of the snatch and the clean and jerk. You might have heard of them from CrossFit. That's probably the thing that popularized them the most. So it's really the oldest barbell discipline that we have.
Why would someone benefit from Olympic weightlifting?
Olympic weightlifting is, well, one of the things that's good about Olympic weightlifting is all of the exercise science data that we have. We could pretty much thank Olympic weightlifting for producing this data. Back in the day, America was really good at Olympic weightlifting in the 60s. And then, like with the rise of the Soviet Union and international sport, the Soviet Union put a ton of funding into Olympic sports. They had an extremely robust and complicated sporting program. And it was full of all of the experts. And so the vast majority of scientific data that we have on training comes from the Soviet Union and the studies that they did on their athletes. And so if you've ever heard of periodization, you can thank the Soviet Union and Olympic weightlifting for the concept of periodization. If you've ever heard of the RDL, we got that from the Soviet Union. We got that from Olympic weightlifting.
Is there a reason why it's called Romanian?
It's because it came from Romania. It was an athlete called Nicu Vlad who invented the exercise to mimic the second pull from the knee in the clean.
I knew there'd be a question that you'd know the answer to.
A lot of people are under the impression that it means reverse deadlift because it starts from the top and it goes down.
I think I've heard people say that too.
And if that's what people think, and if that's what you think, you're wrong. And you're probably doing the RDL wrong too. And you're not alone. There's a lot of people doing it wrong. And something that's really unique about the Olympic lifts they require a lot of strength, a lot of skill, and a lot of power. You can squat, and you can squat badly, and you can become slower. You can jump, and you can jump badly, and you can not get much better. But if you put weight on the lifts, on the snatch and the clean and jerk, you pretty much can't go wrong. Nobody's ever gotten slower because they did more power cleans. Nobody's ever gotten slower because they put 100 pounds on the power clean.
You're more likely to get injured walking than you are in Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
Sarah Robles told me that.
That's very true. A lot of people are scared of training. A lot of people haven't trained in a long time, exercised in a long time, and they're nervous to get into it. And this is a completely backwards thought process. A lot of injuries that come with old age come from muscle wasting that's natural from aging, which can be offset with strength training, and being sedentary, which means not exercising, which is a huge temptation for a lot of people. And so people wanting to avoid exercise and avoid activity to avoid injury in their old age are doing themselves a huge disservice. That was something that our professor, Dr. Bertacci at Marian University, was huge on. He had all the data on it. If you're interested, you can contact me and I can get all the research over to you. What even is Pilates?
What is Pilates? So Pilates was started by Joseph Pilates around World War I because he was a soldier in World War I. I want to say he's a German man, but I feel like I don't remember him fighting for Germany in World War I. But where he ended up was the Isles of Man's and a prisoner of war, I believe. So I don't know if he was a prisoner of war, but those details don't really matter.
Sure.
What matters is that he was working with the injured soldiers, and he attached the springs to the medical beds and created the first reformer, which is popular in Pilates today. And his methods of recovery and rehabilitation were more efficient than what they were doing at the time. And that's how he started his method of contrology. I don't exactly remember what contrology means, but that's like his whole system, and it's mostly about I would say mostly about spinal strength and flexibility. I'd say it's about spinal strength and flexibility because he infamously always says things about you're as young as your spine is. So if you're like hunched over, but you're 35, you're closer to death than someone who is upright and 80 years old. And so that's something he finds very important. And I agree with that because, everybody has a spine, I think.
True, that's true. I'm pretty sure that's true. We have studies on that too.
And so if you're not treating your spine right, it's going to cause whack everywhere else. Everything's connected.
It's true.
And so, if you have lower back pain, it's possible that it could be caused by your hamstrings. It could be caused by your glutes. It could be caused anywhere else than what may be actually be the spot that's in pain. And what's good about Pilates is that it helps with stretching because most of the parts where we are tight are our hamstrings and our hip flexors. And with being sitting like we are now, our hips are in tension right now. And so if you're sitting all day, they're going to stay tight in that position. And so we want to extend them in the opposite direction and stretch them out so they won't be tight and giving you pain. Same with the hamstrings. You want to stretch them out because they'll be tight and they might give you some pain. But back to Pilates. Joseph Pilates, he moved to New York after the war, started his studio there, and I think the studio is still around. I can't remember what it's called, but Pilates is older than what it seems. It seems like this was just invented like 10 or 20 years ago, but this has been around for 100 years,
Right.
It's just now getting more popular and trendy. I would say it was bigger in like California, and then now it's like slowly moving to the Midwest because everything comes to the Midwest late.
True. Yeah.
And so Pilates specifically, I would say that my soapbox, is that what you call it, a soapbox? Yeah. My soapbox on it is that I say Pilates is for everybody because if you're injured, you can do it because it was made for rehabilitation. If you're old, you can do it because it is low impact strength and which means that the injury risk is way, way low. Your risk of getting injured doing Pilates, very low. But we are biased to strength training. And so we believe, and if I say it for a fact, strength training is the most important training.
Yeah, totally.
Strength training is the most important training because if you aren't strength training, your muscles are going to deteriorate after what, 35? Is it 35 when that starts?
Yeah, it's close to there.
I'm just going to say 35. It varies between male and female and all that. But like your muscles start to deteriorate, your bones start to deteriorate. And there's no other way to reverse that and reverse the onset of osteoporosis is strength exercise, weight-bearing exercises.
There's no way to slow it down besides not being sedentary and strength training. It's going to come for everybody unless you keep moving and doing strength training.
But so that's what's good about the reformer is that someone who maybe is 70 years old and is already suffering from osteoporosis and things like that, they can still do this because they can build up their muscles and their bones once again, but not have to think about a barbell on their back and squatting at depth or anything crazy like that. They can get those benefits just like that. Who else benefits from it? We got pre and postnatal. What's really good about that is Pilates is very focused on pelvic floor health. What else?
Or is Pilates good for famous people?
Pilates is good for famous people. Well, of course, because it's in LA, so it's in California, so of course it's trendy out there. Everyone loves Miley Cyrus. Everyone loves her physique. She's got like the toned arms, and infamously, people say it's the Pilates arms. If you ever heard the term, I want to be toned, which is low key, kind of not what you should be saying.
Kind of a silly term.
Kind of a silly term, but like that toned idea that you have is what like kind of Pilates does, because it really focuses on what's the word I'm looking for? Like the resistance, but it's not like crazy resistance where you're gonna be like lifting heavy weights.
Yeah.
But it's like in the sense bodybuilding, where bodybuilders aren't lifting heavy weights, but they're doing higher reps, and that's how their muscular development happens.
It's focused on quality of movement rather than
quality of movement. That's a better way to put it. Functional movement. Because you could maybe the idea of bending over might be okay, but think about picking something up while you're bent over. That's not functional flexibility because you can't pick the thing up.
Right.
That was a little bit of a windy train, but that went somewhere.
But what does Pilates look like for people? Like some people might have in their head, maybe there's a mat involved or some kind of, does it have dumbbells?
Yeah.
What is Pilates?
So
exactly?
Pilates is, I would say like the heart of Pilates is the reformer, because this is what Joseph Pilates really did. And he did do mat stuff as well. But what's good and bad about Pilates is that the name Pilates is open domain, meaning anybody can use it. There's no copyright to it. Anyone can say that they have a Pilates studio, but like can do whatever they want. Which can sound bad, but what's good about it and why he did that is because he wanted people to freely share Pilates and the practice of it.
He wanted it to be open source.
Yes. So that's where you can be like, well, what is Pilates? Because on TikTok, I see this Pilates reformer, and it looks nothing like the actual reformer. It's some sort of plastic gizmo that's on the ground that's just got these handles and these sliders on it. It's not true Pilates, but I can see how you can call it Pilates.
Right.
But what we offer is the reformer and the mat. Both are good. I'm biased towards the reformer, obviously, because of the strength, the weight-bearing strength, because you can get strength development from mat because you're using your own body and you're in these positions where like maybe your core is not strong enough or your hip flexors aren't strong enough. And so when you're in those awkward positions, they're really hard.
Right.
But you can only go so far with yourself. If you watch people who do calisthenics, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
If you watch people who do calisthenics, they can only go so far. And there's only so much you can do with your body. Like, sure, it's cool that you're able to get yourself over the bar without any motion besides like your arms. But how do you progress from that?
That's a good question.
You can't progress any further than that.
And the reformer is just funner too.
And the reformer's funner. You get to lay down. This, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I always tell people it's like you get to take a nap and exercise. Because you get to lay down. You can maybe even close your eyes and you just get to like do the work. And that's fun to me because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
But asking what exactly is Pilates, I would say in the heart of what makes Pilates is torso rigidity. Like I said, Joseph Pilates was all about the spine. And so is torso rigidity the right term that I'm using? Because I looked up the word torso rigidity and it was actually like some kind of like something you don't want to have on like WebMD.
Well, torso rigidity is just the ability to keep the torso in place.
Yeah. Like I think of torso rigidity as like, so I'll explain and maybe you can correct me. It focuses on core, spine, and hips mostly. And so that's why I say torso rigidity, because that's your torso, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I tried to look that up on the internet just to make sure I was using the right word, and it said it was some sort of medical thing you don't want to have. And I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't advertise that.
Well, you want to be able to move around, but you are able to move around at the spine.
So when I say
Pilates,
torso rigidity, what keeps you from hunching forward or having if you're listening, you can't see this, if you have a pelvic tilt where your bottom sticks out, that is improper muscular engagement in your day-to-day life. And so your walk can be off, you can have back pain just from your posture, and you're hunched over because you aren't contracting your muscles right. All of these gadgets and gazmos that they make to make you think that you can fix that, such as a waist trainer or this like back stretcher thing that you wear while you're working at your desk. You don't need it. And most of the time it's actually going to make things worse.
True.
But the torso rigidity is what's important in your day-to-day life, because everybody has a torso, everyone has a spine.
That's true. We have studies on that.
And women a lot of the time, not a lot of the time, most of the time, especially when you're childbearing, you want to have hip flexibility and pelvic floor strength. Everyone, whether you're wanting to get a six-pack abs or just wanting to be healthy, need to focus on their torso or their abs, I mean. And then the spine, obviously the spine is very important. And then we do work on legs and we work on arms, but the main focus is that torso. Does that answer the question?
I think it does.
I hope so. Well, why would an athlete benefit from Olympic weightlifting?
It's a good question. I think that there's a lot of fads in the fitness industry. If there's anything that defines the fitness industry, it's things coming and going, fancy new equipment, fancy new training styles. A lot of it's really silly. You see a lot of people doing training that looks pretty stupid, and 99% of the time, the reason for that is that it is pretty stupid. There are methods of training that stand the test of time that are true almost like a law of nature. Periodization works. All training observes the rules of periodization. Strength training works. If you can benefit from higher force production, if you can benefit from, really anything that they can benefit from higher force production, which is everything, practically, you can benefit from Olympic weightlifting. If you look at training halls for training halls at the Olympics, sprinters doing power cleans, volleyball players doing power cleans. At practically every sport, besides the obvious ones, I don't know if there's any sharpshooters doing power cleans in the training hall. Maybe there are. But practically every sport you see in the training hall, they're doing power cleans, squats, etc. And this isn't by accident. A lot of people want to sell you the easy way out, an easy way of training. Here's a way that we can train without putting weight on. Here's a way that we can train without having to learn the movements. We're going to train something besides the muscles. We're going to train something totally different that we'll talk about a different time. But
so stay tuned and follow.
Yeah, stay tuned for the next podcast. There are things that stand the test of time. Strength training improves sport. If it didn't improve sport, then they wouldn't do it in the NFL. They wouldn't do it in every sport at the high level.
You can't you can't fix the wheel or something like that. You can't.
Yeah, there's no need to recreate the wheel.
That's what it is.
You might see some training footage. There might be some examples of freak athletes that you've heard of before where, oh, well, they actually didn't back squat. They actually didn't do this. But athletes that succeed by doing this succeed largely in spite of this. There's one approach to training that never fails, which is playing the sport that you want to get better at as much as possible. So if you want to get really good at basketball, there's really no way to get better that is better than just doing basketball all the time. But every basketball player can benefit from strength training, including whoever you're thinking of that was the GOAT and they didn't do squats. They could have benefited from squats, guarantee it.
And you can't just take, what's it called, antidotes? What's the word I'm looking for? When it's just one person, you can't just say this.
You can't use an anecdote.
Anecdote.
That's true. That's true. You can't just rely on anecdotes for this. And I'm here to tell you too, this is a guarantee. This is a hard fact. Anybody that's here to tell you, these coaches who are here to tell you, well, lifting is going to slow you down, and well, I tried doing the power cleans and I just didn't see much success with them. Ask yourself for a second, has this person ever produced an athlete that was any good?
Or are they ever an athlete that was good?
Has this guy ever done anything impressive athletically? Does this guy have any idea what he's talking about? Or is he selling you snake oil? These are good questions to ask. And so this type of training is no BS, strength training, power training, stuff that stands the test of time. Power cleans have been done for a very, very long time. They've been done a lot longer than some of this other BS you're seeing. I'm almost getting too upset to have a clear thought process about it.
I'm getting heated.
I'm getting too heated, yeah. I forgot the question.
It was just why should athletes do Olympic weightlifting, which I think you answered.
Another reason that athletes can benefit from Olympic weightlifting is there's nothing wrong necessarily with high school strength and conditioning. Some of it's really good.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better.
Or general strength and conditioning. But a lot of training that you see, which is pretty decent, they just don't get the one-on-one time that they could benefit from to really get what they need out of the lifts. They can't get this individualized programming that they need to produce the results they want. If your training doesn't go past sets and reps, then you're probably just not getting the most bang for your buck. Sets and reps, or maybe not. They're just not the most important training variable. I think that here's something that I hear a lot is that after doing a 2 times body weight squat, you get diminishing returns in terms of speed training. I've heard this a lot, and everybody that tells me this has 0 athletes that squat double body weight. I would be embarrassed to have athletes that I really didn't think were going to hit double body weight. That is a squat that is attainable for practically everybody that walks in the door, for somebody that knows what they're doing. And people are trying to make you scared of weight training because they don't know how to teach it. That's the simple truth.
Leave some comments down below if you have any questions. We will answer every single question.
Every question.
Every question.
In perpetuity. So if you're watching this 10 years from now, we're still obligated legally to answer them.
We'll try and what will our frequency be? We'll try and post.
Trying to post weekly.
Weekly. We're doing weekly, actually.
Trying to do weekly videos.
Shoot, it's getting serious. So if you want your questions answered, put a question in for the week coming. If you don't, then we'll just have to think of someone else to talk about.
Low key true.
Methods out.
Methods out.